The following is produced by 5 Star Productions USA, which is solely responsible for its editorial content and is sponsored in part by a grant from Paul Mitchell Salon Haircare.
The vanishing animal symbol has been officially adopted by the American Association of Zoological Parks and Aquariums. This symbol identifies animals that are threatened or in danger of extinction. The major cause is human population growth, causing the loss of habitat. Finally, nations worldwide have recognized the urgency of saving these animals and are making protection of wildlife habitat a major concern. I'm Ed Begley, Jr. Join me this week on Today's Environment as we explore other positive contributions to our environment.
Today, City Council
reducing
9,000
reducing air
supermarkets
pollutants by
likely a milestone.
30%. Educational programs.
Pandas are looked on with affection all over the world, but their survival is still in jeopardy. Last estimated at 1,000, the wild population in China has been declining, and reproduction captivity has not been fruitful. Meanwhile, panda pelts sell on the black market for as much as $20,000 each, mainly in Japan. Today's Environment discovered a positive approach to an environmental problem.
20 years ago, Americans referred to their stance in a working society as high-tech. That was before businesses staked their livelihood on computers, laser printers, and fax machines. We've come a very long way. Since that time, a worldwide recycling effort has been implemented as a result of the high-tech invasion. The population has severely cut back on its use of plastics, paper, and other products in the workplace and in homes abroad in an effort to reduce the amount of pollutants invading our atmosphere and waste heading to our landfills. That space has become a precious commodity. By the year 2009, 80% of landfills that exist today will be full. A new landfill can cost up to $90 million, a project that is also time-consuming due to the lack of community acceptance, otherwise known as the not-in-my-backyard syndrome. Every inch of space is needed for garbage that can go nowhere else but to a landfill. If all plastic, glass, and paper were recycled, it would cut our buried waste by over half the current burden now being placed on these disposal sites. By selectively removing a large number of one particular product, it can reduce the total landfill waste enormously, and that's what some companies are aiming to do. Make sure their products don't end up in landfills. Advancements toward protecting our environment were made in 1990 by Canon USA, a leading manufacturer and distributor of laser beam printers, facsimiles, and personal copiers. To make their equipment print, cartridges are used to hold the toner. They saw a large amount of their toner cartridges being thrown into landfills every day and decided to do something about it. They began to recycle them. Now, when office workers open a new toner cartridge box, it also includes a UPS-authorized return service label and an instructional guide to the cartridge collection program. The user is asked to repack their used cartridge back into the container when it is of no further use. The packages are then shipped from all over the country and are brought to the Canon Recycling Center. There, the cartridge is disassembled. The plastic and aluminum materials are melted down and remolded to be used for making new cartridges or a variety of other products. All of the packaging is also recycled, including the box, wrapper, and polystyrene protectors. The new products are packaged and sent to market once again. This process is all done at no cost to the consumer. Canon picks up the entire tab. That's why it's very important for users to take full advantage of the company's Clean Earth campaign. It will only work if people utilize the recycling program. And what greater incentives are there than reducing landfill waste, reusing valuable resources, and helping the environment? And all of this without any charge to the consumer. To show its appreciation to customers who participate in the campaign, Canon donates $1 for every cartridge collected, to be split evenly between the Nature Conservancy and National Wildlife Federation. Corporate America is taking the responsibility of reusing their products and ultimately preserving the environment in which we live. Here's just one more company who's taking it back.
As a creature of streams and marshes, the otter is dependent upon wetlands. Its future depends on them. Nationwide, these lands are disappearing at the rate of nearly 500,000 acres every year. This and their senseless trapping reduces their future survival chances. Today's environment found another environmental alternative.
The United States government established the Manhattan Project in 1942 to develop the atomic bomb. Several separate sites were selected for each stage of production in order to maintain extreme secrecy, one being the Hanford Reservation in Washington State. Here, the main objective was to produce the plutonium needed to make nuclear weapons. The liquid hazardous and radioactive waste generated at the Hanford site over the last 40-some years have been stored in underground tanks. The Department of Energy began a massive cleanup of the affected areas in 1988. One such cleanup project is now in the works. The Effluent Treatment Facility, or ETF, will be used to process liquid hazardous and radioactive materials. The DOE, through its primary contractors, approved the Adtex Corporation of Herndon, Virginia, to design and build the facility. The ETF will go into operation in June of 1994 and is expected to operate for 30 years. The liquid in the underground storage tanks is first pumped through an evaporator outside of the plant, where most of the contamination is removed when the liquid is converted to steam, separating the water from the contaminants. After which the steam is condensed back into a liquid and then piped to the ETF. At the ETF, the contaminants are run through a variety of chemical and mechanical processes to separate the waste from the liquid. The final product is a small dried powder of hazardous waste that will be held in drums for later treatment. The thousands of gallons of purified water that once contained all of the waste will be tested to make sure it meets or exceeds EPA guidelines before being released into the environment. Here's how the separation occurs. First, an initial filtration process strains out any particulates that could damage the system's delicate machinery. Next, hydrogen peroxide is added. It acts with ultraviolet light to chemically alter specific hazardous molecules in the wastewater, changing them into harmless water and carbon dioxide. The water is strained once again, this time through a series of fine filters in a reverse osmosis process. It removes any dissolved solids that may be invisible to the naked eye, like salt from salt water. The final step is to remove any metals and soften the water through an ion exchange system. The cleaned water is held in one of 3 650,000-gallon tanks where it is monitored and tested to make sure it meets very strict limits involving water discharge. All of the radioactive solids that were originally filtered from the water during the separation process are concentrated in an evaporator. Then, the condensed waste is fed to a thin film dryer to boil off any remaining moisture and produce a dry radioactive powder that will be stored for later treatment. The Adtex Effluent Treatment Facility will incorporate the latest instrumentation and computer control systems, ensuring the maximum safety of its workers and neighboring communities. The ETF will minimize the amount of hazardous waste needing to be disposed of and return clean, treated water back to the environment. Patience, perseverance, dedication, and technical know-how has created a new solution to an old and complex problem.
The Geldy monkey is seldom seen in the wild. This type of primate wasn't identified until 1904. Their home along the Amazon River in South America is rapidly being destroyed, taking them along with it. Next is an environmental contribution with some positive effects.
Here in the South Carolina community, county workers began excavating a site for a new library. When they started digging, they found petroleum-contaminated soil, which could slow down the construction process. The petroleum is believed to have come from an old filling station that used to sit on that spot. Underground gas station tanks installed in the 1930s through the 1950s weren't built to today's standards. Many of them leaked. Today, there are about 2 million sites nationwide left over from these leaking tanks still awaiting cleanup. Workers at the library site collected the dirt and took it to a rural area near Columbia, South Carolina. Like South Carolina, each state has its own environmental agency to ensure investigations are performed on new parcels of land being developed. The local investigations and cleanups in South Carolina are funded by the SUPERB program, which keeps a standing record of the sites. The SUPERB program gets its capital through a half-cent gasoline tax charged at the pump. Until recently, these cleanups would have required a costly incineration process, which has been known to be a concern due to air emissions. But scientists have found a way to use naturally occurring bacteria to do the job. Microbes living in the dirt actually eat the contaminants. SBP Technologies takes these microorganisms and creates the ideal environment to help them thrive on petroleum products. This is done by digging out the contaminated dirt, mixing it up, and shredding it. A nutrient solution and wood chips are mixed into the soil. The wood chips bulk up the dirt to make it more porous, like compost. The bacteria will then have enough oxygen to grow and multiply. By doing this, the amount of bacteria increases from 1 million to 1 billion in every half teaspoon of soil. The mixture is taken into these portable buildings where it is spread out in piles. Then the microbes do the rest of the work. After 4 weeks, SBP workers test the soil to see if it has reached targeted cleanup levels. If so, it is returned to its original site, or as in this case, taken to a new area to be spread out and become part of the earth once again. If petroleum remains in the soil, it could eventually seep into the water supply. While many contaminated sites have gone by untreated for decades, the actions now being taken will dramatically reduce ground pollutants. This same bacteria-eating process is being adapted to work on more toxic and hazardous contaminants, like wood preservatives, chlorinated solvents, and other chemicals. Soil contamination laws are expected to become even more stringent over time in an ongoing effort to help clean up our planet by using our own man-made ingenuity and Mother Nature's abundant resources.
Tortoises like these can live up to 200 years, but many of their turtle counterparts are endangered. Even though a female turtle lays up to 200 eggs at a time, these nutritious delicacies are snatched up by turtle hunters all over the world. Adding to this condition, new beach resorts are destroying their nesting locations. Fortunately, preserves are growing and the sale of turtle products is being banned. Measures like these are helping gentle giants survive. Today's environment learned of another step towards saving our environment.
It has been estimated that nearly 30% of the more than 4 million commercial buildings in the United States have SBS, or sick building syndrome. It's the name given to a growing public problem that exposes people to a variety of pollutants that are invisible and often odorless, but represent serious threats to health. It's an invisible smog comprised of microscopic fungi and bacteria spewed out by a building's dirty air handling systems, or formaldehyde and other toxic gases released from new carpets or room partitions. The situation can result in health problems, coughing, difficulties in breathing, eye and sinus irritation, headaches, fatigue, and allergic reactions. Stagnant air is at the heart of indoor air quality problems. The cause may be traced to the emphasis on energy-efficient construction in the 60s and 70s, which resulted in the sealing off of air in a building. This has meant that people within the building are completely dependent on an air delivery system for the air they breathe. A solution to the problem is to thoroughly clean the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. However, vacuuming a system alone without removing the source of contamination within the system will not completely solve the problem. That's because the slightly greasy film characteristics of the dust, dirt, and contaminants in most ductwork acts as a glue that allows pollutants to adhere to duct walls and parts. It cannot be removed with ordinary vacuuming methods, which concentrate on cleaning easily accessible areas. Safe Air Systems Incorporated, headquartered in Minneapolis, Minnesota, uses a system that decontaminates the complete heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. The procedure begins with an inspection, where inaccessible parts of the system are viewed with the fiber optic borescope. This high-technology device not only helps building owners verify the need for cleaning, but also gives the engineer an opportunity to assess the magnitude of the problem and determine the extent of the decontamination required without having to first dismantle the system. Safe Air Systems technicians enter the ductwork through access panels and use compressed air guns and specially designed rotary brushes to thoroughly clean contaminants from duct walls. Where access is not possible, new openings are made, which will be closed with overlapping galvanized sheet metal. Any registers, grills, or diffusers mounted to the ductwork are removed, vacuumed, washed, and remounted. Terminal reheat coils with a combination of thorough vacuuming and pressure washing are each decontaminated, and all internal surfaces and components are cleaned. The final step in the overall procedure involves running the system at various speeds to assure it is thoroughly clean. An EPA-registered disinfectant then may be applied if a bacterial or microorganism problem was present. Indoor air quality will be one of the major environmental issues of the 1990s and beyond.
Among African animals, the black rhino is one of the most threatened with extinction. The primary reason is poaching. A rhino's two horns bring as much as $50,000 in the black market for use as Arab dagger handles or in oriental medicines. Senseless slaughter is destroying this harmless beast. Next, we'll take a look at other progress for a healthier world.
Every year, in the United States alone, over 600,000 tons of biomedical waste is generated by hospitals, laboratories, and medical offices. For years, medical waste has been incinerated or shipped to a hazardous waste management facility. Unfortunately, some of this waste never reaches its designated disposal area. ASEA Brown Boveri, ABB, the world's largest industrial equipment and electrical engineering firm, has been addressing environmental issues around the globe for decades, with major investments in environmentally compatible, cost-efficient technologies. ABB Sanitec was formed to address specific issues. They have implemented a practical solution to medical waste disposal through the Sanitec Microwave Disinfection System. This system is environmentally safe to dispose of infectious medical waste. Based upon existing technology used in Europe since 1985, they introduced the Sanitec system, which was installed in North Carolina's Forsyth Memorial Hospital in February 1990. Sanitec works on a very simple principle. It uses a combination of steam and microwaves to disinfect waste and render it harmless. The advantage of this process is that it treats this sensitive waste safely without discarding any harmful liquids or air emissions. It becomes a one-step operation in the hospital where the waste is collected and deposited into a hopper and taken directly to the unit. The system is on site, so there's no need for storage or transportation of untreated waste, which provides added safety to the surrounding community. It's all right here, from bag to hopper. Once the waste is loaded in, it's sealed. The computer automates the system, and it is not discharged until it's thoroughly treated. To prevent infectious organisms from escaping, the hopper area is treated with high-temperature steam, then passed through a two-staged filter prior to the start of the feed operation. The material is then shredded, rendering even small items such as syringes and hypodermic needles unrecognizable and reducing the volume by 80%, saving valuable landfill space. The shredded waste then moves along a screw conveyor into the microwave treatment area, where steam injectors moisten it to ensure the heat will be evenly distributed during the microwave disinfection stage. Computers control the process while the moistened material is treated, ensuring that the proper level of time and heat exists for treatment. A recording of this information is also provided for verification. Orlando Regional Medical Center, the first hospital in Florida to use the Sanitec system, is already projecting cost savings.
At Orlando Regional, we expect to save approximately 20% in the cost of disposing of biohazardous waste through the use of this system. This is very important when you consider the stricter regulations being imposed on incineration.
Existing problems are being addressed with new solutions, making our environment a safer place for us to live and enjoy.
Exotic birds are often hunted down to be sold as pets. Many beautiful and rare birds, like the toucan, are becoming endangered because of capture and resale in the United States. After being trapped, the birds are transported here, where only 1 in 5 will survive. Here's a look at an alternative to another environmental concern.
The Connecticut River in New England is a sight of immeasurable beauty. Now it's fall, but soon new life will bloom as Mother Nature begins its replenishing effort in the coming spring. The river swells to make room for the schools of shad and salmon as they instinctively journey hundreds of miles upriver from the Atlantic Ocean to lay their eggs in the cracks and crevices in the river's soft bed. This is where these fish were born, and where they will continue to reproduce a species which plays an indispensable role in maintaining our ecosystem. Most of the Atlantic salmon begin their migration in the spring. However, some wait as late as fall to make the journey. The spawning itself takes place in October or November. The eggs hatch in the early spring. Some of the salmon return to the sea immediately after spawning. Others choose to stay 5 to 6 months and wait for the birth of their young. The baby fish, or fry, spend 1 to 2 years in freshwater before a change in their bodies takes place, which prepares them for living in seawater. Along with the salmon, the American shad also utilizes the Connecticut River as a breeding ground, but usually not until mid-April instead of October. Young shad take only months, not years, to make the transition into the ocean. By the end of the 18th century, the fish found their usually difficult pilgrimage up the Connecticut River impossible. Shore-to-shore dams blocked the way to their spawning grounds. Their populations severely declined. New Englanders became concerned. However, it wasn't until 1955 that a bypass system devised at the Holyoke Dam was built by the Northeast Utilities Company to play host to a number of successful fishways to follow. During the spawning seasons, the salmon and shad take an elevator ride up 52 feet before being emptied into a 300-foot-long flume. The flume carries a gentle current of water from the river. The fish swim into the current and pass a viewing area where visitors get a chance to see the process up close. The shad and salmon are then counted to monitor their population rates from year to year and released into the Connecticut River upstream. The utility has since built 7 other power plants along the Connecticut River, all equipped with fishways, which provide passage over the dams for the migrating schools. After passing through Holyoke, the fish come upon Northeast Utilities' Cabot Station Fishway at Turner Falls. But here, instead of an elevator, the salmon and shad climb 66 stairs or ascending pools to the power canal. In the power canal, they swim 2 miles to reach the gatehouse, where they pass by another viewing area and are counted once again. They exit the fishway above the Turner Falls Dam and continue their journey. The salmon and shad are flourishing. This makes the residents of Connecticut happy. The fish jump for joy and secures a vital link in the northeastern food chain.
During a 10-year time period ending in 1989, almost half the African elephant population was destroyed, with approximately 600,000 remaining. Having destroyed the bigger elephants, poachers need to shoot nearly twice as many for each ton of ivory. Well, since the 1990 international trade ban on ivory, the consumer demand has greatly reduced. Still, the African population is projected to double in less than 25 years, causing a great loss of wildlife habitat. I'm Ed Begley Jr. Join me next week as we explore more solutions to our environmental problems on Today's Environment.
If you know of any interesting environmental success stories, call us at 407-997-9800. This has been a presentation of 5 Star Productions USA. The preceding program was sponsored in part by a grant from Paul Mitchell Salon Haircare.